There is a moment in every documentary about space, about the search for life, about the cosmos, when someone asks the question. You know the question. You have heard it before. You have probably asked it yourself, lying in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering about the darkness beyond the atmosphere. Are we alone? It is the oldest question. It is the most profound question. And for most of human history, we have answered it with nothing but speculation and faith. The ancient Greeks wondered about other worlds. Medieval philosophers debated whether God's infinite creativity demanded infinite habitation. Giordano Bruno was burned at the stake in 1600, in part for suggesting that the stars were distant suns with their own planets and their own life. For centuries, the question remained unanswerable. We had no way to detect planets around other stars. We had no way to analyze their atmospheres. We had no way to know whether life could exist anywhere but here. That has changed. In the last 30 years, astronomers have discovered over 5,000 exoplanets, worlds orbiting stars other than our Sun. Some are gas giants, inhospitable to life as we know it, but others are rocky, Earth-sized, orbiting in the habitable zones of their stars, where liquid water could exist on their surfaces. The James Webb Space Telescope, launched in 2021, has begun analyzing the atmospheres of some of these worlds. For the first time in human history, we have the technology to detect the chemical signatures that life might leave behind. The search is on. But what if the answer has already been given? What if, while we were looking up at the stars and wondering, something was looking back? What if, while we were sending radio signals into the void and waiting for a response, the response was already here, circling our aircraft carriers, hovering over our nuclear facilities, passing through our solar system on trajectories that defied explanation? What if the question, "Are we alone?" has already been answered, and we simply refused to listen? This is not science fiction. This is not speculation. This is what some of the most credentialed scientists in the world are now saying out loud, on the record, with their names and reputations attached. They are not fringe figures. They are not conspiracy theorists. They are professors at Harvard and Stanford, former NASA researchers, astronomers who have spent their careers pointing telescopes at distant stars. They have published hundreds of peer-reviewed papers. They hold dozens of patents. They have been honored with the most prestigious awards their fields can offer. And they believe, some of them with state certainty, that humanity has already been contacted by non-human intelligence. This documentary will introduce you to 5 of them. It will examine their credentials, their evidence, and their conclusions. It will consider why mainstream science has been so reluctant to engage with their claims, and it will ask you to decide for yourself what you believe. Because if they are right, even partially right, then everything changes. The assumptions that underpin our civilization, that we are the most intelligent beings in existence, that the universe is ours to explore and conquer, that the future belongs to humanity. All of these assumptions would need to be reconsidered. We would not be alone. We would not be first. We might not even be noticed. That is a frightening thought. It is also perhaps a liberating one. The universe is vast beyond comprehension. In that vastness, anything is possible, even the possibility that something, somewhere, has already found us. Let us meet the scientists who believe this might be true. You are listening to the most intelligent man in the room, not because of his opinions, because of his credentials. He has published over 300 research articles. He holds 40 United States patents. He co-founded 8 biotechnology companies. Stanford University named him one of their top 25 inventors. He was nominated for a Nobel Prize, and at a conference in Manhattan in May of 2023, surrounded by hedge fund managers and policymakers and tech executives, this man, a professor of pathology at one of the most prestigious medical schools on Earth, was asked a simple question. What is the probability that extraterrestrial intelligence has visited our planet? He did not hesitate. 100%. His name is Garry Nolan, and he is not the only one. There are scientists, real scientists, with real credentials, working at real institutions, who believe that humanity has already been contacted by something beyond our world. They are not fringe figures. They are not attention seekers. They are professors at Harvard and Stanford, former NASA researchers, SETI astronomers who have spent their careers staring into the void. What they are saying should make you uncomfortable, not because it sounds crazy, but because these are not the kind of people who say crazy things. And if they are right, even partially right, then everything you think you know about human civilization, about our place in the universe, about the future of our species, is about to change. This is their story. Before we meet these scientists, we need to understand something about the wall that separates them from the mainstream. For most of the 20th century, talking seriously about extraterrestrial contact was career suicide in academia. The UFO phenomenon had been so thoroughly contaminated by hoaxes, by hysteria, by Hollywood, that any scientist who expressed even mild curiosity risked being labeled a crank. Papers would go unpublished, grants would disappear, colleagues would whisper. This was not an accident. After the United States Air Force launched Project Blue Book in the 1950s, the official investigation into UFO sightings, the government concluded that the phenomenon posed no threat to national security. More importantly, they concluded that it was not scientifically interesting, and they encouraged the scientific community to move on. For decades, that is exactly what happened. But something changed in 2017. That December, the New York Times published a front-page story revealing that the Pentagon had been secretly funding a program called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. For 5 years, from 2007 to 2012, the program had investigated encounters between military personnel and unidentified aerial phenomena. The article was accompanied by infrared footage from Navy fighter jets showing objects moving in ways that seemed to defy physics. The story cracked the wall. Suddenly, it was acceptable to ask questions again. Congress started holding hearings. The Pentagon established new offices to track unexplained sightings. And scientists who had quietly been researching these phenomena for years began to step into the light. What they had to say was extraordinary. The first scientist you need to know is Avi Loeb. He is the Frank B. Baird Jr. Professor of Science at Harvard University. He chaired the astronomy department for nearly a decade. He founded the Black Hole Initiative. He has published over 800 papers. Stephen Hawking flew across the Atlantic to attend a Passover Seder at his home. By any measure, Avi Loeb is one of the most accomplished astrophysicists of his generation, and in October of 2017, he became obsessed with an object from another star system. The object was discovered by astronomers in Hawaii using the Pan-STARRS telescope. They named it Oumuamua, a Hawaiian word meaning scout or messenger from afar arriving first. It was the first interstellar object ever detected passing through our solar system. From the beginning, Oumuamua was strange. It was not shaped like any asteroid or comet scientists had ever seen. Based on the way it reflected sunlight, researchers concluded it was either extremely elongated, like a cigar roughly 400 meters long, or extremely flat, like a pancake. Neither shape made sense. No known natural process produces objects with such extreme dimensions. Then there was the acceleration. As Oumuamua swung around the sun and began heading back toward interstellar space, it did something unexpected. It sped up. Not by much, just 0.1% faster than gravity alone could explain. But that tiny deviation was enough to baffle astronomers. When comets approach the sun, they often accelerate slightly because their ice sublimates into gas, which acts like a natural jet engine. But Oumuamua showed no sign of outgassing. There was no coma, no tail, no debris. Whatever was pushing it, it was not behaving like a comet. Most scientists searched for natural explanations. Perhaps Oumuamua was made of nitrogen ice, which would sublimate without leaving a visible trail. Perhaps it was a hydrogen iceberg, or a shard torn from a distant exoplanet. Dozens of papers proposed dozens of theories. Avi Loeb proposed something different. In a paper published in November 2018 in the Astrophysical Journal Letters, Loeb and his colleague Shmuel Bialy suggested that Oumuamua might be a light sail, a thin artificial structure designed to be propelled by radiation pressure from a star. If the object was thin enough and large enough, they calculated, sunlight alone could account for the anomalous acceleration. In other words, Oumuamua might be a piece of extraterrestrial technology. The reaction from the scientific community was swift and largely negative. Critics accused Loeb of sensationalism, of abandoning the scientific method, of damaging the credibility of serious searches for extraterrestrial life. Some were brutal. Loeb did not back down. In 2021, he published a book titled Extraterrestrial, the first sign of intelligent life beyond Earth. In it, he laid out his case that Oumuamua's properties were so unusual, so unlike any natural object we have ever observed, that the extraterrestrial hypothesis deserved serious consideration. For me, Oumuamua is so unlike anything else we know in the universe, Loeb wrote, that it must have been designed, constructed, and launched by an extraterrestrial intelligence. He acknowledged that he could not prove this, but he argued that the reflexive dismissal of the idea, the assumption that any explanation involving aliens must be wrong, was itself unscientific. Science demands caution, he said. We propose hypotheses, gather evidence, and test them. Yet trends and careerism often steer attention and resources away from unconventional ideas. In July of 2021, Loeb founded the Galileo project at Harvard, the first systematic scientific search for evidence of extraterrestrial technological artifacts. The project uses a network of advanced telescopes and sensors to scan the skies and analyze any anomalous objects that pass through our solar system. The name is deliberate. Galileo was persecuted for claiming the Earth was not the center of the universe. Loeb believes that the stigma surrounding the search for extraterrestrial intelligence is a modern form of the same intellectual conservatism. The public funds science, Loeb has said, and the public is extremely interested in the search for alien life. Dismissing that interest because it makes some scientists uncomfortable is not rigorous, it is cowardice. Oumuamua is long gone now, racing away at over 50 kilometers per second, too distant for any telescope to observe. We will never know what it truly was. But in August of 2025, something else arrived. Astronomers detected a new interstellar object entering our solar system, only the third ever observed. They designated it 3-Tar I Atlas. And once again, Avi Loeb noticed something strange. The object's orbital plane around the Sun lay within 5 degrees of Earth's. The likelihood of that coincidence, assuming a random trajectory, was just 0.2%. Its brightness suggested a diameter of roughly 20 kilometers, far too large for a typical interstellar asteroid, and its trajectory would carry it unusually close to Venus, Mars, and Jupiter during the fall of 2025, an alignment Loeb calculated as having a probability of just 0.005% if the arrival time were random. Most striking of all, the object would reach its closest approach to the Sun on October 29th, at which point it would be hidden from Earth-based telescopes by the Sun itself. This could be intentional, Loeb speculated, to avoid detailed observations from Earth. He stopped short of claiming the object was artificial, but he was clear about the implication. The consequences, should the hypothesis turn out to be correct, could potentially be dire for humanity. We better be ready for both options and check whether all interstellar objects are rocks. Critics dismiss this as more of the same speculation. Supporters saw it as exactly the kind of vigilance science requires. Either way, Avi Loeb has done something remarkable. He has made it respectable, barely, grudgingly, but respectable, to ask whether some of the strange things passing through our solar system might be more than natural phenomena. He is not alone in asking. When Garry Nolan arrived at the Salt Eye Connections conference in Manhattan in May of 2023, he was not there to talk about cancer. This is what he should have been talking about. Nolan is one of the world's leading immunologists. His laboratory at Stanford has pioneered technologies for analyzing individual cells at extraordinary resolution. His work has led to breakthroughs in understanding leukemia, autoimmune diseases, and the tumor microenvironment. His former postdocs run laboratories at major universities across the country, but Nolan was not in Manhattan to discuss T-cells or cancer immunotherapy. He was there for a session titled "The Pentagon, Extraterrestrial Intelligence and Crashed UFOs." When the moderator asked if he believed extraterrestrial intelligence had visited Earth, Nolan did not equivocate. "I think you can go a step further," he said. "It has not just visited, it has been here a long time, and it is still here." He was asked to assign a probability to that statement. 100%, Nolan replied. How did a Stanford professor of pathology come to believe with apparent certainty that non-human intelligence is present on Earth? The answer begins in 2012, when several individuals approached Nolan with an unusual request. They were connected to the Central Intelligence Agency and various aerospace contractors. They wanted help. For years, the government had been quietly collecting reports from military personnel and intelligence officers who had encountered unidentified aerial phenomena. Some of these encounters seemed to have physical effects on the witnesses. The individuals who approached Nolan showed him MRI scans of patients, pilots, ground personnel, intelligence agents who had gotten close to alleged UAPs. The scans were troubling. Even without medical training, the damage was obvious. Some of their brains were horribly damaged, Nolan later recalled. The damage resembled the white matter scarring seen in multiple sclerosis, but the pattern was different. Nolan noticed something else in the scans, an unusual connection between two structures in the brain called the caudate nucleus and the putamen. This feature was disproportionately common in individuals who reported close UAP encounters, far more common than in the general population. Nolan does not claim to know what caused the damage. He does not claim to know what the witnesses actually encountered, but he believes the data is clear. Something happened to these people, and it left measurable traces in their brains. His work expanded from there. Nolan began analyzing physical materials allegedly associated with UAP events. In January 2022, he published a paper in Progress in Aerospace Sciences, a peer-reviewed journal, examining materials from the 1977 Council Bluffs incident, where witnesses reported a luminous object hovering over a field before dropping dozens of pounds of molten metal. Investigators had ruled out meteorites, satellites, and aircraft as explanations. The case remained unexplained. Nolan's analysis used advanced mass spectrometry techniques developed in his immunology research. He found anomalies in the isotopic composition of the materials, ratios of elements that were difficult to explain through known manufacturing processes. He has examined other materials as well, including samples allegedly recovered from a 1957 incident in Ubatuba, Brazil, where witnesses reported a UAP exploding over a beach. The magnesium in those samples showed isotopic ratios that deviated significantly from naturally occurring magnesium. The problem, Nolan explained, is there is no good reason humans have for altering the isotope ratios of a simple metal like magnesium. There are no different properties of the different isotopes. Critics have questioned whether these materials are genuinely anomalous or simply poorly documented. Nolan acknowledges that provenance is a challenge. Many of the samples have passed through multiple hands over decades, making it difficult to establish an unbroken chain of custody. But he argues that this is precisely why more rigorous investigation is needed, not less. In 2023, Nolan co-founded the Sol Foundation with socio-cultural anthropologist Peter Skafish. The foundation's stated purpose is to advocate for methodical, scientifically robust research into physical materials associated with UAP events. Its first symposium was held at Stanford University that November and featured speakers including former intelligence officials and military officers. When asked how he handles criticism from colleagues, Nolan has said that his skin turned into titanium. He points to his track record in mainstream science as evidence that he knows how to evaluate evidence rigorously. "I'm not seeking the spotlight," he has said. "I am asking questions and trying to avoid being swayed by biases." If you take a potential solution off the table and throw it in the garbage, you could spend the rest of eternity searching around on the table for the answer, and you threw it in the garbage. There is something disarming about Nolan's certainty. He is not a wild-eyed believer. He speaks carefully, citing data and acknowledging uncertainty where it exists. But when pressed on the fundamental question, is non-human intelligence present on Earth? He does not hesitate. The data points quite empirically that we are not alone. He has said, not all scientists who believe in extraterrestrial contact think that aliens are visiting Earth in spacecraft. Sarah Seeger is the class of 1941, professor of planetary science, professor of physics, and professor of aeronautics and astronautics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She is one of the world's leading experts on exoplanets, planets orbiting stars other than our Sun. In 2013, she was awarded a MacArthur Fellowship, the so-called Genius Grant, for her work on detecting signs of life in the atmospheres of distant worlds. In 2020, she was appointed an Officer of the Order of Canada. In 2021, she received the Magellanic Premium Medal from the American Philosophical Society for her paradigm-shifting exoplanet research. Her credentials are beyond question. Her dedication to finding life beyond Earth is absolute. Seeger has dedicated her career to a single question: how do we find life beyond Earth? Her approach is different from Loeb's or Nolan's. She is not looking for spacecraft or artifacts. She is looking for chemistry. Every living thing on Earth affects the atmosphere. Plants release oxygen through photosynthesis, a process that has been happening for billions of years and has transformed our planet's atmosphere from something unrecognizable into the oxygen-rich environment we breathe today. Bacteria produce methane. Phytoplankton in the ocean release dimethyl sulfide. Even the mere presence of liquid water leaves chemical signatures that can be detected from space. If life exists on another planet, Seeger reasons, it should leave similar traces. Biosignature gases that accumulate to detectable levels in the planetary atmosphere. The key is knowing what to look for and having instruments sensitive enough to detect it. For years, this was a theoretical exercise. The technology to analyze exoplanet atmospheres simply did not exist. When a planet passes in front of its star, an event called a transit, a tiny fraction of the starlight filters through the planet's atmosphere before reaching our telescopes. By analyzing the spectrum of that light, astronomers can in principle identify specific molecules. But the signal is incredibly faint. The planet is a speck against the glare of its star. The atmosphere is a wisp around that speck. With the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope in 2021, that changed. JWST is the most powerful space telescope ever built. Its mirror is 6.5 meters in diameter, over 2.5 times larger than Hubble's. It observes in the infrared, where many biosignature gases have their strongest spectral features. It is positioned at the second Lagrange point, 1 million miles from Earth, where it can observe without interference from our planet's atmosphere or the sun's glare. For exoplanet scientists like Seeger, JWST is the instrument they have been waiting for their entire careers. In 2023, JWST turned its attention to a planet called K2-18b, located about 120 light-years from Earth. The planet orbits in its star's habitable zone, the region where temperatures might allow liquid water. And when astronomers analyzed the light filtering through its atmosphere, they found something remarkable. There were possible traces of dimethyl sulfide. On Earth, dimethyl sulfide is produced primarily by phytoplankton in the ocean. It is one of the molecules Seeger and her colleagues had identified as a potential biosignature, a gas that is difficult to explain without biological processes. The detection is preliminary. Other explanations are possible. The data requires further analysis. Scientists are cautious about drawing conclusions, but Seeger has been clear about what it would mean if the detection is confirmed. We are getting close to finding other Earths and signs of life. It will change the way we see our place in the universe. She developed a modified version of the famous Drake equation, the formula that estimates the number of intelligent civilizations in the galaxy. Seeger's version focuses not on radio-transmitting aliens, but on any life form that produces detectable biosignature gases. Her calculations suggest that within our galaxy alone, there should be countless worlds where life has left its mark on the atmosphere. We know a quarter of all the stars in the galaxy have planets in the habitable zone of their host star, Seeger has said. So to me, it is not impossible that there may be life elsewhere. What makes Seeger different from skeptics is not her methods. She applies the same rigorous scientific standards as anyone. It is her willingness to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if that evidence points towards something extraordinary. I call it the awakening, she has said. The whole world is waking up to the fact that we are getting close. Kevin Knuth worked for NASA from 2001 to 2005. He was a research scientist at NASA's Ames Research Center in California, designing artificial intelligence algorithms for astrophysical data analysis. He holds a PhD in physics from the University of Minnesota. He's a professor at the University at Albany and the editor-in-chief of the scientific journal Entropy. He has published over 100 peer-reviewed papers. By the standards of mainstream academia, Kevin Knuth is exactly the kind of person whose opinions should matter. And Kevin Knuth believes that unidentified aerial phenomena deserve serious scientific study. His interest began during graduate school at Montana State University in 1988, when a physics professor told his class about colleagues at Malmstrom Air Force Base who had reported UFOs shutting down nuclear missiles. Years later, Knuth would see a recording of former US Air Force personnel describing similar incidents at a press conference. The accounts matched. This must be real, he thought, and nobody is doing anything about it. Knuth's approach is distinctive because of his expertise in Bayesian analysis, a mathematical framework for updating beliefs based on evidence. When he turned this framework to the UFO phenomenon, he found that the data was far more interesting than the stigma suggested. In 2019, Knuth published a peer-reviewed paper analyzing the flight characteristics of unidentified aerial vehicles. He examined multiple well-documented cases, including the 2004 encounters near the USS Nimitz carrier group off the coast of California. The Nimitz incident is one of the best documented UAP cases in history. For 2 weeks in November of that year, the carrier group's advanced radar systems tracked anomalous objects that behaved unlike any known aircraft. The objects dropped from 80,000 feet to near sea level in seconds. They hovered, accelerated, and changed direction instantaneously. On November 14, Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich were flying FA-18F Super Hornets when they were vectored to investigate one of the objects. What they saw defied explanation. A white, oval-shaped object roughly 40 feet long, later nicknamed the Tic Tac because of its shape, was hovering above a disturbance in the ocean. They had no visible wings, rotors, or exhaust. As Fravor descended to investigate, the object seemed to mirror his movements. Then abruptly, it accelerated away at extraordinary speed, fast enough to reappear on the radar of the USS Princeton, 60 miles away, within seconds. Fravor was a graduate of the Top Gun Naval Flight School with over 18 years of experience. He had never seen anything like it. The technology we faced was far superior to anything that we had at the time, that we have currently, or that we are going to have in the next 10 to 20 years, Fravor later testified before Congress. Knuth's analysis of the radar data and witness accounts estimated that the Tic Tac object had achieved accelerations of approximately 5,000 times the force of gravity. No known propulsion system can achieve such acceleration. No human pilot could survive it. That is the data, Knuth has said. Now the trick is looking for an explanation. He is careful not to claim that the objects are extraterrestrial. There are other hypotheses: secret military technology, sensor malfunctions, atmospheric phenomena that are not yet understood. But Knuth argues that the extraterrestrial hypothesis cannot be ruled out simply because it makes people uncomfortable. I think UFO skepticism has become something of a religion with an agenda, he has written. Discounting the possibility of extraterrestrials without scientific evidence, while often providing silly hypotheses describing only one or two aspects of a UFO encounter. Knuth is now vice president of UAPEX, a non-profit organization that conducts field research on unidentified aerial phenomena. He is also a research affiliate of Avi Loeb's Galileo project. In 2022, he traveled to the West Coast to study phenomena in areas where Navy pilots had reported repeated UAP sightings. When asked why people reject notions of extraterrestrial life on Earth, Knuth has attributed it to human arrogance. It happens time and time again, he said. The Earth is flat. Humans could not possibly have descended from apes. It is hard to believe, so it is easier not to. The fifth scientist is different from the others. Jacques Vallee is 85 years old. He has been studying unidentified aerial phenomena longer than most of the other researchers have been alive. His scientific career began as a professional astronomer at the Paris Observatory. He co-developed the first computerized map of Mars for NASA in 1963. He later worked at Stanford Research Institute on ARPANET, the precursor to the modern Internet. He has founded successful technology companies. He has served as a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. In mainstream science and business, Vallee's credentials are impeccable, but it is his UFO research that has made him a legend. Vallee's journey began in 1961, when he was a young astronomer at the Paris Observatory, tracking satellites and computing orbits. One night, he observed something that he could not explain, a luminous object that moved in ways that no satellite or aircraft could replicate. When he reported the observation to his superiors, they instructed him to destroy the tracking tape. He did not understand. Here was anomalous data. exactly what scientists are supposed to be looking for. Why would anyone want to destroy it? That question would shape the rest of his career. In the 1960s, Vallee moved to the United States and began working with J. Allen Hynek, the astronomer who served as scientific advisor to the U.S. Air Force's Project Blue Book. Hynek had been hired essentially to debunk UFO sightings, to provide scientific explanations that would satisfy the public and make the phenomenon go away. He was, in his own words, an arch skeptic when he began. But as the years passed and the data accumulated, Hynek's views changed. Many sightings could indeed be explained as misidentifications of aircraft, planets, weather balloons, or unusual atmospheric phenomena. These explanations satisfied most cases, but there was a residual percentage, perhaps 3 to 5% of all reports, that could not be explained. These were cases with multiple credible witnesses, including trained military personnel and airline pilots. These were cases with radar confirmation, where ground-based systems tracked the same objects that witnesses were observing visually. These were cases with physical traces, landing marks, radiation readings, soil samples that showed anomalies, and there was no plausible, conventional explanation for what had occurred. Hynek coined the term close encounter to categorize these cases. A close encounter of the first kind was a sighting at close range with no physical effects. A close encounter of the second kind involved physical traces. A close encounter of the third kind involved the presence of beings. Steven Spielberg borrowed the terminology for his 1977 film Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The French scientist character in that film, played by François Truffaut, was based directly on Jacques Vallee. Hynek began to take the phenomenon seriously. He advocated for rigorous scientific investigation. He criticized the Air Force for its dismissive attitude. He founded the Center for UFO Studies to promote serious research. So did Vallee. But Vallee went further than his mentor. He noticed something that troubled him. The UFO phenomenon did not behave the way one would expect if it was simply extraterrestrial spacecraft conducting a scientific survey of Earth. Consider, if you wanted to study a planet, how many visits would you need? A few hundred? A few thousand? Surely not more. You would send probes, gather data, and return home. The process would be efficient and purposeful. But the UFO phenomenon is not efficient. Sightings have been reported throughout human history, from ancient Rome to medieval Europe to modern America. Thousands upon thousands of encounters, spanning millennia, with no apparent progress or purpose. If these are alien scientists, they are extraordinarily bad at their jobs. Then there was the matter of the beings themselves. Witnesses frequently reported encountering entities associated with UFO sightings. These entities were almost always humanoid: 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, a head. But why? Evolution on Earth produced the humanoid form through billions of years of contingent accidents. The probability of evolution on another planet producing the same basic body plan is essentially 0. Unless, Vallee reasoned, the beings were not from another planet at all. In 1969, Vallee published Passport to Magonia, a book that would transform the field of UFO research. In it, he drew systematic parallels between modern UFO reports and historical accounts of encounters with supernatural beings, fairies, elves, demons, angels. The parallels were striking. In Celtic folklore, People were taken by fairies into otherworldly realms where time flowed differently. They reported missing time, disorientation, and physical effects. Some claimed to be shown the fairy realm's technology. Some said they were the subjects of experiments or breeding programs. Replace fairies with aliens and fairy realm with spacecraft, and the accounts become indistinguishable from modern UFO abduction reports. What did this mean? Vallee proposed a radical hypothesis. Perhaps the UFO phenomenon was not a modern development at all. Perhaps it was something that had been interacting with humanity throughout history, appearing in different guises depending on the cultural expectations of the witnesses. In the Middle Ages, people saw angels and demons. In the 19th century, they saw airships and their mysterious pilots. In the 20th and 21st centuries, they see flying saucers and grey aliens. The phenomenon adapts. It wears masks. If this hypothesis is correct, then asking, are UFOs extraterrestrial spacecraft, is the wrong question. It is like asking whether fairies are real. The question assumes a framework, extraterrestrial visitors in physical vehicles, that may not apply to the phenomenon at all. Vallee has suggested several alternative frameworks. Perhaps UFOs are manifestations of another dimension that coexists with our own. Perhaps they are projections from the future or from a parallel timeline. Perhaps they are a control system that has been guiding human consciousness and culture throughout history, appearing in forms that provoke maximum transformation with minimum comprehension. These ideas are strange. They are difficult to test. They push against the boundaries of what science can address. But they have the virtue of taking the data seriously. The extraterrestrial hypothesis, as Vallee has pointed out, cannot explain why UFOs have been appearing for thousands of years without making clear contact. It cannot explain why the beings look so improbably humanoid. It cannot explain the absurdity and theatrical quality of so many encounters, the cryptic warnings, the nonsensical messages, the sense that the witnesses are being shown something rather than communicated with. Whatever the phenomenon is, it is stranger than aliens from another planet. In his 1990 paper, 5 Arguments Against the Extraterrestrial Origin of Unidentified Flying Objects, Vallee laid out his objections systematically. First, the number of unexplained close encounters is far greater than would be required for any physical survey of Earth. Second, the humanoid body structure of the alleged aliens is not biologically plausible for beings that evolved on another planet and is not adapted to space travel. Third, the behavior reported in thousands of abduction accounts contradicts the hypothesis of scientific experimentation by an advanced civilization. Fourth, the phenomenon extends throughout recorded human history, not just the modern era. Fifth, the apparent ability of UFOs to manipulate space and time suggests something radically different from conventional spacecraft. Vallee does not claim to know what UFOs actually are, but he believes that the question itself, what are we actually dealing with, is more important than the assumption that we already know. Are the UFOs windows rather than objects? Vallee asked in 1969. He meant that the phenomenon might be a doorway to something else, something that our current scientific frameworks cannot fully comprehend. In May of 2024, Vallee was interviewed about the current state of UFO research. He expressed concern that the government's renewed interest might lead to another period of secrecy rather than genuine disclosure. The group in Washington within the DoD that has been charged with looking at the problem has signed a $2 million contract with a company that is concerned with rumor control. Vallee said, "This is a signal to many of us that the subject is about to go into a new phase of secrecy." He warned that the public might never learn what scientists working on classified programs have found. Not about UFO propulsion systems, not about recovered materials, not about anything that would fundamentally change our understanding of reality. "You are not going to hear what has been found about the propulsion system of the crafts that have been retrieved," Vallee said. "And you are not going to be hearing about the 90% of the data which is mostly outside the United States and is not military data." Whether Vallee is right about the nature of the phenomenon, whether we are dealing with extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, or something else entirely, his career stands as a testament to the value of keeping an open mind. We need to face the possibility that some of the strange flying objects that outperform the best aircraft in our inventory and defy explanation may indeed be visitors from afar. Knuth wrote in the conversation, echoing Vallee's decades-long argument. And there is plenty of evidence to support UFO sightings. In July of 2023, the United States House of Representatives held a hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena. 3 witnesses testified: Ryan Graves, a former Navy fighter pilot; David Fravor, the commander who encountered the Tic Tac off San Diego; and David Grush, a former intelligence officer. Grush's testimony was extraordinary. He claimed that the US government has been operating a secret program to recover and reverse engineer crashed non-human spacecraft. He claimed that this program has been hidden from congressional oversight for decades. He claimed that the government possesses non-human biologics, biological remains recovered from these craft. When asked directly if he believed extraterrestrial intelligence has visited Earth, Grush did not hesitate. "Yes," he said. Grush acknowledged that he had not personally seen the craft or remains. His testimony was based on interviews with over 40 witnesses, current and former military and intelligence personnel, who claimed direct knowledge of the programs. The Pentagon has denied Grush's claims, stating that it has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. But the hearing itself was remarkable. For the first time, Congress was seriously entertaining the possibility that the United States government has been concealing evidence of non-human intelligence. Garry Nolan vouched for Grush publicly. He said he knew him well. He said the claims were credible. Scientists profiled in this documentary hold different views about what is happening. Loeb focuses on interstellar objects and the search for technological artifacts. Nolan analyzes materials and physiological effects on witnesses. Seeger looks for biosignatures on distant exoplanets. Knuth applies physics and Bayesian reasoning to documented encounters. Vallee suspects the phenomenon is stranger than any of them imagine. But they share something in common: the conviction that the evidence deserves serious attention, regardless of where it leads. Let us consider what it would mean if they are right. If non-human intelligence has visited Earth or is still here, it would be the most significant discovery in human history. Not the most significant scientific discovery, the most significant discovery, period. Every religion, every philosophy, every assumption about humanity's place in the cosmos would have to be reconsidered. We would no longer be alone. We would no longer be at the top of the intellectual food chain. Whatever these beings are, biological, artificial, interdimensional, they would possess knowledge and capabilities that dwarf our own. What would they think of us? What would they want? We do not know. Perhaps they have been observing us without interference, like anthropologists studying an isolated tribe. Perhaps they have been influencing our development in ways we cannot detect. Perhaps they are indifferent to us entirely, passing through our solar system on journeys we cannot comprehend. Or perhaps, and this is the possibility that some researchers find most troubling, their intentions are not benign. Grush testified that he was briefed on malevolent events involving UAP and nuclear weapon sites. Nolan's research has documented brain damage in individuals who claim close encounters. The objects tracked by the Nimitz carrier group appear to be monitoring a military exercise. Whatever is happening, it is not clear that it is friendly. But perhaps the question of intention misses the point. Jacques Vallee has argued that the phenomenon might function as a kind of control system, something that influences human consciousness and culture without direct intervention. In this view, it does not matter whether the intelligence is benevolent or hostile. What matters is that it exists, and that its existence changes everything. Sarah Seeger has said that finding life beyond Earth, even microbial life, would change how we see our place in the universe. How much more would change if that life turned out to be intelligent? If it turned out to be here? Kevin Knuth has called the decades of UFO secrecy probably one of the greatest intelligence failures in history. If the phenomenon is real and has been studied secretly, then the knowledge gained from that research has been withheld from the scientific community and the public. Technologies that might have been developed, questions that might have been answered, understanding that might have transformed our civilization. Avi Loeb has said that the search for extraterrestrial intelligence is not just a scientific question, but a test of human curiosity and courage. The universe does not owe us simplicity, Loeb has written, and we do not owe the universe intellectual cowardice. You have now met 5 scientists who believe that humanity has already been contacted by something from beyond our world. Avi Loeb, the Harvard astrophysicist, who thinks an interstellar object might have been a light sail. Garry Nolan, the Stanford immunologist, who says with 100% certainty that non-human intelligence is here. Sarah Seeger, the MIT planetary scientist, searching for biosignatures in the atmospheres of distant worlds. Kevin Knuth, the former NASA researcher who calculates impossible accelerations in documented UAP encounters. Jacques Vallee, the astronomer and computer scientist who suspects the phenomenon is stranger than extraterrestrials. They do not agree on everything. They use different methods. They draw different conclusions, but they have all looked at the evidence and concluded that something extraordinary is happening. Whether that something is extraterrestrial spacecraft, interdimensional phenomena, or something we do not yet have a name for, they believe it deserves serious scientific attention. The question is, do you? There is a story that scientists like to tell about the history of discovery. For centuries, educated Europeans believed that heavy stones fell faster than light ones. It seemed obvious. It matched intuition. And then Galileo climbed the Tower of Pisa and dropped 2 balls of different weights. They hit the ground at the same time. The obvious belief was wrong. For centuries, scientists believed that the universe was static and eternal. It seemed philosophically necessary. And then Edwin Hubble discovered that galaxies were moving away from us, that the universe was expanding, that it had a beginning. The philosophically necessary belief was wrong. For decades, scientists believed that continental drift was pseudoscience. The idea that continents moved seemed absurd, and then the evidence accumulated, matching fossils on different continents, magnetic stripes on the ocean floor, the fit of the coastlines, until the absurd idea became the foundation of modern geology. The history of science is a history of uncomfortable truths displacing comfortable assumptions. Perhaps the scientists in this documentary are wrong. Perhaps their evidence will be explained by natural phenomena, measurement errors, or human psychology. Perhaps the UFO phenomenon will turn out to be nothing more than misidentified drones, secret military aircraft, and overactive imaginations. But perhaps not. Perhaps we are living through another moment when the obvious, the intuitive, the philosophically necessary beliefs turn out to be wrong. Perhaps the universe is stranger than we thought. Perhaps we are not alone. Perhaps we never were. Avi Loeb has said that the search for extraterrestrial intelligence is like the search for Terra Australis, the hypothetical southern continent that Europeans believed must exist to balance the land masses of the northern hemisphere. For centuries, philosophers argued about whether the continent was real. And then, someone built a ship, sailed south, and found Antarctica. You can argue they are likely to be there. They are not likely to be there, Loeb has said. But in the end, doing the experiment is the important thing. The scientists in this documentary have built their ships. They are sailing into uncharted waters. They are looking at data that others refuse to examine. They are asking questions that others are afraid to ask. Whether they find Antarctica or open sea, the voyage itself matters. Because if there is even a small chance that they are right, if there is even a possibility that non-human intelligence has contacted humanity, then ignoring that possibility is not scientific caution. It is exactly the kind of cowardice that has been wrong so many times before. Look up at the night sky. There are roughly 100 billion stars in our galaxy. Around each of those stars, on average, at least one planet orbits. That is 100 billion worlds in the Milky Way alone. And there are at least 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe, each containing billions of stars, each star potentially hosting its own system of planets. The numbers are incomprehensible. The scale is beyond imagination. In all that vastness, across all those worlds, we are asked to believe that Earth is the only place where intelligence has emerged, that in all those billions of years, across all those trillions of planets, consciousness sparked into existence exactly once. Sarah Seeger has called this assumption increasingly untenable. The probability of life elsewhere, she has said, is not speculation. It is mathematics. The chance for life elsewhere seems inevitable based on sheer probability, Seeger has said. But probability is not proof. Inevitability is not evidence. The scientists in this documentary know this better than anyone. That is why they are searching. That is why they are analyzing materials and radar data and atmospheric spectra and brain scans. They are trying to find the evidence that probability predicts should exist. Some of them believe they have already found it. Garry Nolan speaks of the 100% certainty with which he believes non-human intelligence is here. Avi Loeb describes Oumuamua as potentially the first detection of extraterrestrial technology. Kevin Knuth calculates accelerations that no known human technology can achieve. Jacques Vallee catalogues decades of encounters that defy conventional explanation. They may be wrong. Science advances by testing hypotheses, and hypotheses often fail. But they are asking the questions that need to be asked. They are taking seriously the possibility that has been dismissed for too long. And if they are right, if non-human intelligence is here, if it has been here for a long time, then every assumption you hold about human civilization, about progress, about the future, needs to be reconsidered. We would not be the pioneers we imagine ourselves to be. We would be the indigenous people, encountered by visitors with technologies we cannot understand. We would be the subjects of study, the curiosities, the data points in someone else's research. That is a humbling thought. It is also, perhaps, a necessary one, because the universe does not care about our assumptions. It does not arrange itself for our comfort. It simply is what it is. And what it is, according to these scientists, might include intelligence far older and stranger than our own. The search continues. Avi Loeb's Galileo project is scanning the skies for anomalous objects. Garry Nolan's Soul Foundation is analyzing materials and developing research protocols. Sarah Seeger's team at MIT is studying exoplanet atmospheres with the James Webb Space Telescope. Kevin Knuth is conducting field research in areas with documented UAP activity. Jacques Vallee, at 85, is still writing, still theorizing, still asking the questions he first asked 6 decades ago. They are not alone. Around the world, scientists are beginning to take the phenomenon seriously. Governments are releasing previously classified information. Congressional hearings are being held. The stigma that silenced researchers for generations is slowly, grudgingly, beginning to lift. But the resistance remains strong. For every scientist willing to speak publicly about UAP, there are dozens who stay silent, afraid of professional consequences. For every paper published, there are grants denied and careers stalled. The wall between mainstream science and the study of anomalous phenomena is cracked but not broken. The scientists in this documentary have accepted the cost. They have endured the ridicule, the skepticism, the professional risks. They have done so because they believe the questions matter more than the comfort of consensus. If we in fact have programs that possess this technology, David Fravor testified to Congress about the Tic Tac encounter, it needs to have oversight from those people that the citizens of this great country elected to office to represent what is best for the United States and in the best interest of its citizens. He was speaking about transparency and accountability, but he was also speaking about something deeper, the right of human beings to know what is happening in their own skies. That right should not depend on whether the answer is comfortable. It should not depend on whether the evidence fits existing theories. It should depend only on the truth. And the truth, according to these 5 scientists, might be extraordinary. You began this journey with a man at a conference in Manhattan. He had published 300 papers. He held 40 patents. He had been nominated for a Nobel Prize. And when asked about the probability of extraterrestrial contact, he said 100%. Perhaps he is wrong. Perhaps all of them are wrong. But consider this. If you had asked the most credentialed scientist in 1945 whether it was possible to create a weapon from splitting atoms, he would have said yes, because he was probably working on one. If you had asked the most credentialed scientist in 1960 whether it was possible to land a human being on the moon, he would have said yes, because it was his job to make it happen. The credentialed scientists of today are telling you that non-human intelligence may have already contacted humanity. They are not guessing. They are not speculating. They are analyzing data, publishing papers, and building instruments to gather more evidence. Listen to what they are saying. Ave Loeb. We are probably not alone. Garry Nolan. 100%. Sarah Seeger. The whole world is waking up. Kevin Knuth. That is the data. Jacques Vallee. We need to face the possibility. 5 scientists, 5 sets of credentials that would make any university proud. 5 conclusions that should make you think. The universe is vast beyond comprehension. In that vastness, anything is possible. Even contact, even now, even here. Let us go deeper into the data, because it is one thing to know that credentialed scientists believe in extraterrestrial contact. It is another thing entirely to understand why. The Nimitz encounter has already been mentioned, but the details deserve closer attention. On November 10th, 2004, radar operator Kevin Day sat at his console aboard the USS Princeton, part of the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, conducting exercises off the coast of Southern California. Day was experienced. He knew what commercial aircraft looked like on radar. He knew what military jets looked like. He knew what birds and weather looked like. What appeared on his screen that morning looked like none of those things. Strange contacts were appearing at approximately 80,000 feet, well above the operational ceiling of any known aircraft. Then, without any apparent cause, the contacts would plunge toward the ocean, dropping tens of thousands of feet in seconds before stabilizing at lower altitudes. The acceleration required to execute such a maneuver would be thousands of times the force of gravity, enough to turn any human pilot into a thin paste against their seat. Day initially suspected equipment malfunction. He ran diagnostics. The systems were functioning normally. He consulted with colleagues. They saw the same thing. For several days, the objects appeared and disappeared, always behaving in ways that defied explanation. Then, on November 14th, Day got permission to investigate. 2 FA-18F Super Hornets were redirected from their training mission. Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, each with a weapons systems officer in the back seat, were vectored toward the latest contact. What happened next would haunt Fravor for the rest of his career. As he descended toward the coordinates, Fravor noticed something disturbing the ocean surface below, a churning, frothing disturbance, as if something large was lurking just beneath. And above this disturbance, perhaps 50 feet in the air, was a white object. It was approximately 40 feet long. It was smooth, with no visible wings, rotors, exhaust ports, or any recognizable propulsion system. It looked, Fravor would later say, like a Tic Tac breath mint. The object was moving, not flying, moving. It would dart left, then right, then left again. The motion was abrupt and instantaneous, like a ping-pong ball bouncing off invisible walls. There was no gradual acceleration, no banking turn, no aerodynamic explanation for how a physical object could change direction so violently. Fravor began to descend, spiraling toward the object to get a closer look. As he did, something remarkable happened. The object seemed to notice him. It began to rise, mirroring his spiral, orienting itself toward his aircraft. Then it accelerated. In Fravor's words, "It kind of turns and rapidly accelerates beyond anything I have seen, crosses my nose, and it is gone." The object had disappeared, but seconds later, radar operators on the Princeton detected it again, at the Combat Air Patrol point where Fravor's flight was supposed to be heading. The object had traveled 60 miles in less than a minute. It had somehow known where Fravor was going before he got there. A second wave of fighters was launched to investigate. One of them, piloted by Lieutenant Commander Chad Underwood, managed to track the object with his aircraft's infrared camera. This footage, 90 seconds, of a white oblong shape hovering against a grey background before accelerating off-screen, would eventually be released by the Pentagon and become the most famous UFO video in history. But here is what most people do not understand about the Nimitz encounter. It was not a single sighting. It was 2 weeks of repeated contacts. Multiple radar systems, some of the most advanced in the world, tracked these objects on multiple occasions. Multiple trained military personnel observed them visually. The objects demonstrated capabilities that no known technology can replicate. And after it was over, nothing happened. There was no official investigation, no debriefing beyond the standard after-action report. When Fravor and Dietrich returned to the carrier, they were met with jokes and skepticism from their colleagues. The incident was effectively buried. It would be 13 years before the New York Times revealed the story to the world. Kevin Knuth has analyzed the Nimitz data extensively. His calculations suggest that the Tic Tac object experienced accelerations of at least 100 times the force of gravity, and possibly much higher. The energy required for such acceleration, combined with the complete absence of visible exhaust or heat signature, implies propulsion technology that we cannot explain. The data is clear, Knuth has said. Now the trick is looking for an explanation. Some have proposed conventional explanations. The objects might have been drones, or experimental aircraft, or sensor malfunctions, or atmospheric phenomena. Each of these hypotheses has problems. Drones of that era could not achieve the observed speeds or maneuvers. Neither could any known aircraft, experimental or otherwise. Sensor malfunctions might explain one radar track or one visual sighting, but not the correlation between multiple independent sensor systems and multiple trained observers. Atmospheric phenomena do not hold position, mirror the movements of approaching aircraft, or appear on radar as solid objects. The Nimitz encounter is not unique. Similar incidents have been reported for decades. The difference is that this one was thoroughly documented by the most advanced military sensor systems on the planet, observed by multiple credible witnesses, and eventually disclosed to the public. It is exactly the kind of evidence that scientists like Knuth and Nolan say deserves serious investigation. Consider the problem from the perspective of physics. If you wanted to travel from one star system to another, How would you do it? The distances are almost incomprehensibly vast. The nearest star to our Sun, Proxima Centauri, is over 4 light-years away. That means light itself, the fastest thing in the universe according to conventional physics, takes more than 4 years to make the journey. At the speeds achieved by our fastest spacecraft, the trip would take tens of thousands of years. This is why many scientists have been skeptical of the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Even if intelligent civilizations exist elsewhere in the galaxy, the argument goes, they could not possibly have traveled here. The physics does not allow it. But this argument has a flaw. It assumes that we understand all of physics. We do not. Dark matter and dark energy, mysterious substances that make up approximately 95% of the universe, remain unexplained. Quantum mechanics, our best theory of the very small, is incompatible with general relativity, our best theory of the very large. We do not have a working theory of quantum gravity. We do not fully understand the nature of time or the origin of consciousness. In other words, 95% of reality remains outside our scientific understanding. Is it really so implausible that a civilization millions of years more advanced than ours might have discovered physics that we have not? That they might have found ways to manipulate space, time, or dimensions that we cannot yet imagine? Kevin Knuth has speculated that the flight characteristics observed in UAP encounters might be consistent with some kind of gravitational propulsion, a technology that warps space-time around the craft rather than pushing against air or ejecting propellant. Such technology would explain the absence of sonic booms, the instantaneous acceleration, the apparent immunity to inertial forces. This is not science fiction. General relativity tells us that gravity and space-time are intimately connected. Mass warps space-time. Warped space-time affects how mass moves. A civilization that could artificially create such effects might be able to achieve propulsion that looks impossible by conventional standards. For me, it suggests that we missed some physics somewhere, Knuth has said. Avi Loeb has made similar arguments. In his view, the assumption that interstellar travel is impossible reflects human arrogance more than scientific rigor. We have been developing technology for approximately 10,000 years. The universe is over 13 billion years old. Civilizations could have been developing technology for millions or billions of years before we even existed. They may be far more accomplished than we are. Garry Nolan has said of hypothetical extraterrestrial visitors, they might have bigger brains. They may have artificial intelligence that goes well beyond what we have. They may know more about science. If such civilizations exist, our assumptions about what is physically possible may be as naive as a medieval peasant's assumptions about airplanes. This brings us to the most controversial claim of all, that the United States government already has evidence of extraterrestrial technology and has been hiding it for decades. David Grush made this claim explicitly in his congressional testimony. He said that he had been briefed on programs that recover and reverse engineer non-human spacecraft. He said that the government possesses biologics, remains of non-human beings. He said that this information has been deliberately concealed from congressional oversight. The Pentagon has denied these claims. Officially, no such programs exist. Officially, no such materials have been recovered. Officially, there is nothing to see here. But consider the history. In 1947, something crashed near Roswell, New Mexico. The initial Army Air Force press release described it as a flying disc. Within hours, that description was retracted and replaced with a story about a weather balloon. For decades, the incident was dismissed as a case of initial confusion followed by correction. Then, in the 1990s, the Air Force released a series of reports acknowledging that the weather balloon explanation was itself a cover story. The actual debris, they said, came from Project Mogul, a classified program to monitor Soviet nuclear tests using high-altitude balloons. But witnesses to the original incident have described materials that do not match this explanation. Jesse Marcel, the intelligence officer who recovered the debris, claimed until his death that he had handled something extraordinary. Metallic material with unusual properties, fragments covered in indecipherable symbols. Other witnesses described military personnel cordoning off the area and threatening civilians with dire consequences if they spoke. What actually crashed at Roswell? We do not know. The witnesses are dead. The physical evidence is either destroyed, classified, or never existed depending on which account you believe. But the incident illustrates a pattern. The government has repeatedly changed its story about anomalous events, and the final official explanation is not always the true one. Consider the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, the Pentagon program revealed by the New York Times in 2017. For years, the government denied that any such program existed. Then the Times published its story, and suddenly the program's existence was acknowledged. Luis Elizondo, who claimed to have run the program, went public with allegations that the government was taking UAP seriously behind closed doors, while dismissing the phenomenon publicly. The current investigation into UAP is being conducted by the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARO, established in 2022. Its director, Sean Kirkpatrick, has testified to Congress that the office has found no credible evidence of extraterrestrial activity. But Grush claims that ARO does not have access to the relevant programs. He claims that the real work is being done in highly compartmentalized special access programs that even most high-ranking officials do not know about. Who is telling the truth? Garry Nolan has publicly vouched for Grush's credibility. He has said that Grush is a known quantity in intelligence circles, that his claims are based on conversations with dozens of witnesses, that there is substance behind the allegations. Other scientists are more skeptical. Seth Shostak, senior astronomer at the SETI Institute, has pointed out that Grush has not personally seen the craft or bodies he describes. His testimony is based on what others told him. Shostak has also noted that if crashed alien spacecraft existed, it would be extraordinarily difficult to keep them secret over multiple decades involving hundreds or thousands of people. From the standpoint of science, Shostak has said, there is still no good evidence that extraterrestrials are visiting the Earth, only an argument from authority. This is a fair criticism. Grush's testimony, however compelling, is not physical evidence. It is a claim about evidence that he says exists, but that he cannot produce. And yet, Congress took his testimony seriously enough to hold multiple hearings. Bipartisan members of the House and Senate have demanded answers from the Pentagon. The National Defense Authorization Act of 2023 included provisions for UAP whistleblowers to report to Congress without fear of retaliation. Something is happening, whether it is the beginning of genuine disclosure or another chapter in a long history of confusion and misdirection. Only time will tell. Let us return to the scientists. What distinguishes Loeb, Nolan, Seeger, Knuth, and Vallee from the broader community of UFO believers is not their conclusions, it is their methodology. These are not people who believe in aliens because they want to believe. They believe because they have looked at data and found it compelling. They have published their findings in peer-reviewed journals. They have subjected their ideas to criticism and refined them in response. They are doing science. Sarah Seeger's work on biosignatures illustrates this beautifully. She is not claiming to have found life on K2-18b. She is claiming that her team detected a chemical compound that, on Earth, is primarily produced by living organisms. She is acknowledging that other explanations are possible. She is calling for further observation and analysis. This is how science works. You make an observation. You propose a hypothesis. You test it. You revise. You test again. The truth emerges gradually through the accumulation of evidence and the elimination of alternatives. The problem with the UFO phenomenon has always been that it is extraordinarily difficult to study scientifically. Sightings are unpredictable. Physical evidence is rare. Witnesses are often dismissed without serious investigation. The stigma has prevented mainstream scientists from touching the subject, which has left it to amateurs and enthusiasts who often lack the training to separate signal from noise. What these 5 scientists have done, each in their own way, is bring rigorous methodology to a field that desperately needs it. Avi Loeb has built the Galileo project to systematically scan the sky for anomalous objects using instruments designed to capture high-quality data rather than blurry photos. Garry Nolan has applied his expertise in advanced mass spectrometry to analyze materials that others have dismissed or ignored. Sarah Seeger has developed the theoretical framework for detecting biosignatures on exoplanets and is now using that framework to interpret actual observations from the James Webb Space Telescope. Kevin Knuth has published peer-reviewed papers applying physics and statistics to documented UAP encounters, extracting quantitative estimates from witness accounts and sensor data. Jacques Vallee has compiled the most comprehensive database of global UFO sightings in existence, spanning centuries and cultures, looking for patterns that might reveal the nature of the phenomenon. None of them claim to have definitive answers. All of them claim that the questions are worth asking. The implications extend beyond science. If extraterrestrial intelligence has visited Earth or is here now, what does that mean for human society? Garry Nolan has spoken about the need for anthropologists and sociologists to engage with this question. How would different cultures react to confirmation of non-human intelligence? How would religions incorporate this knowledge into their worldviews? How would governments navigate the political and security implications? These are not hypothetical questions. They are questions that may need to be answered in our lifetime. The Soul Foundation, which Nolan co-founded, has explicitly addressed the intersection of UAP research with religion and culture. Their 2023 symposium, included discussions about how various faith traditions might respond to evidence of extraterrestrial life. Some religious leaders have already weighed in. The Vatican has stated that belief in extraterrestrial life is compatible with Christian faith. Islamic scholars have noted that the Quran describes creation as extending far beyond Earth. Buddhist philosophy, with its concept of multiple realms of existence, seems particularly amenable to the idea of non-human intelligence. But the psychological impact on individuals might be more challenging. The overview effect, the cognitive shift reported by astronauts who see Earth from space, suggests that direct confrontation with cosmic reality can be transformative in profound and sometimes disorienting ways. We are not at the top of the intellectual food chain, Nolan has said of the potential implications of extraterrestrial contact. This realization, if widely accepted, could be destabilizing for a species that has spent its entire history believing it was alone in the universe. Or it could be liberating. Carl Sagan once wrote that the detection of extraterrestrial intelligence would be a transformation of human consciousness comparable to the Copernican revolution, the moment when humanity learned that Earth was not the center of the universe. We survived that realization. We may survive this one. There is a moment in Jacques Vallee's work that captures the strangeness of the UFO phenomenon better than any data point or statistical analysis. Vallee has described interviewing witnesses who reported encounters not just with craft, but with beings. The beings were typically humanoid, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, but somehow wrong. Their proportions were off. Their movements were mechanical or too fluid. Their faces were expressionless or expressed emotions that did not match the situation. The beings rarely communicated in any meaningful way. When they did speak, their messages were often banal or absurd. Warnings about nuclear war, cryptic statements about the environment, requests for soil samples. Nothing that would not be out of place in a bad science fiction movie. This absurdity bothered Vallee. If these were advanced extraterrestrials conducting a scientific study of humanity, why were their interactions so strange? Why did they not present themselves in a way that would facilitate communication? Why did the encounters seem designed to confuse rather than enlighten? Vallee's interdimensional hypothesis attempts to answer these questions. Perhaps the phenomenon is not extraterrestrial in the conventional sense. Perhaps we are dealing with something that exists outside our normal framework of reality, something that can only interact with human consciousness through symbols and archetypes that change over time. In this view, the UFOs of the 20th century are the fairies of the 19th century, are the angels and demons of medieval times. The phenomenon adapts to cultural expectations, presenting itself in forms that the witnesses can almost, but not quite, understand. This is a deeply weird idea. It is not testable in any conventional sense. It pushes against the boundaries of what science can address, but it reflects something important, that the UFO phenomenon, whatever it is, does not behave the way we expect physical spacecraft from another planet to behave. It is stranger than that. It is more slippery. It resists easy categorization. The scientists in this documentary take different positions on this strangeness. Loeb focuses on the most physical, most testable aspect of the phenomenon, actual objects passing through our solar system. Nolan analyzes materials and physiological effects. Knuth sticks to what can be calculated from radar data and witness accounts, but all of them acknowledge that they are dealing with something that does not fit neatly into existing scientific categories. The universe does not care what we believe, Nolan has said. Our job is to measure it. The quote captures something essential about the scientific attitude these researchers have brought to a field that desperately needs it. They are not asking anyone to believe. They are presenting data. They are publishing papers. They are building instruments. They are doing science. Science is not about certainty. It is about evidence. It is about testing hypotheses and following data wherever it leads, even when it leads somewhere uncomfortable. The UFO phenomenon has been uncomfortable for mainstream science for decades. It has been easier to dismiss than to investigate, easier to mock than to measure. Careers have been protected by not looking. But these 5 scientists have looked, and they have seen something worth taking seriously. What happens next? The Galileo project continues to operate, scanning the skies with increasingly sophisticated instruments. When the Vera C. Rubin Observatory comes online in Chile, it will be capable of detecting interstellar objects like Oumuamua on a regular basis, perhaps once a month. Each detection will be an opportunity to gather better data, to characterize these visitors from other star systems, to determine whether they are natural or artificial. The James Webb Space Telescope continues to observe exoplanet atmospheres, searching for the chemical signatures of life. Each new detection of a potentially habitable world, each new spectrum showing unusual chemistry, brings us closer to the moment when we might be able to say with confidence that we are not alone. The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office continues its work, whatever that work may actually entail. Congressional pressure for transparency continues to build. Whistleblowers continue to come forward with claims that may or may not be substantiated. And scientists like Loeb, Nolan, Seeger, Knuth, and Vallee continue to ask questions that others are afraid to ask. The wall between mainstream science and the study of anomalous phenomena is crumbling. It has not collapsed. There is still stigma. There are still careers at risk. But the crack that opened in 2017 has widened into a gap that cannot be ignored. The research is really only just starting, Kevin Knuth has said. He is right. We are at the beginning of something. Whether that something leads to the confirmation of extraterrestrial intelligence, the discovery of new physics, or merely a better understanding of how human perception can be fooled, we do not yet know. But we are looking, finally, rigorously, systematically. We are looking, and that is how science has always worked. You began this journey with a question. Have aliens already contacted us? 5 scientists, each with credentials that would impress anyone, have given their answers. Avi Loeb believes that Oumuamua may have been the first technological artifact from another civilization detected in our solar system. He has built an organization to search for more. Garry Nolan believes with 100% certainty that non-human intelligence is present on Earth. He has analyzed materials and brain scans that he says support this conclusion. Sarah Seeger believes that the discovery of life beyond Earth is imminent, perhaps microbial life detected through biosignatures in exoplanet atmospheres, perhaps something more. She has dedicated her career to making this discovery possible. Kevin Knuth believes that documented UAP encounters display physics that cannot be explained by any known technology. He has published peer-reviewed calculations that support this claim. Jacques Vallee believes that the UFO phenomenon is something stranger than extraterrestrial visitors, perhaps interdimensional, perhaps a control system manipulating human consciousness. He has spent 6 decades trying to understand it. They disagree on many things, but they agree on one thing. The evidence deserves serious attention. Perhaps they are wrong. Science is a process of testing hypotheses, and most hypotheses turn out to be incorrect. The history of science is littered with brilliant minds who believed things that were not true. It would not be fair to present these scientists' views without acknowledging the substantial, skeptical perspective. Seth Shostak has spent his career at the SETI Institute, searching for radio signals from extraterrestrial civilizations. He has bet publicly that humanity will detect such signals within 20 years. He believes that the universe almost certainly contains other intelligent life, but he does not believe that extraterrestrials are visiting Earth. From the standpoint of science, there is still no good evidence, Shostak has said. Only an argument from authority. This is a crucial point. When Grush testifies before Congress, he is not presenting physical evidence. He is presenting his testimony that other people told him about physical evidence. This is hearsay. Important hearsay, perhaps, but hearsay nonetheless. When Nolan analyzes materials allegedly associated with UAP events, he is not analyzing materials whose provenance is certain. These samples have often passed through many hands over decades. Chain of custody is difficult to establish. The possibility of contamination or misattribution cannot be ruled out. When Knuth calculates the acceleration of the Tic Tac, he is relying on witness accounts and sensor data that may be subject to interpretation. Radar systems can produce artifacts. Pilots can misjudge distances and speeds. Infrared cameras can display confusing images under certain atmospheric conditions. Michael Shermer, publisher of Skeptic magazine, has noted that the congressional hearing on UAP was remarkable for what it lacked: any actual physical evidence. "We are still seeing not a shred of physical evidence," he said. "No crashed saucer, no body, no artifact that could not have been made on Earth." This is a valid criticism. The scientific method requires evidence that can be independently verified. Eyewitness testimony, however credible the witnesses, is not sufficient. Human perception is fallible. Human memory is unreliable. Even trained observers can be fooled. The history of UFO research is filled with cases that seemed compelling at the time, but were later explained through conventional means. The Phoenix Lights of 1997, witnessed by thousands, turned out to be military flares. The Rendlesham Forest incident in England, often called Britain's Roswell, has been explained by some researchers as a combination of lighthouse beams and meteor sightings. Does this mean that all UFO sightings can be explained? No. The skeptics acknowledge that a small percentage of cases remain genuinely unidentified. But unidentified does not mean alien. It means we do not know what it was, and not knowing is a humble position, more humble perhaps than claiming certainty about extraterrestrial visitation. Radio astronomer Michael Garrett has pointed out a basic problem with the crashed spacecraft hypothesis. If aliens are crashing their vehicles on Earth with any regularity, there must be far more of them arriving than astronomers observe. That would imply that there must be hundreds of them coming every day, Garrett has said, and astronomers simply do not see them. Sarah Russell, a planetary scientist at the Natural History Museum in London, has noted how easy it should be to identify extraterrestrial materials. If you give me an alloy, it would take me less than half an hour to tell you what elements are in it. It should be easy to understand whether something falling to Earth is man-made or extraterrestrial. And yet, no such definitive extraterrestrial material has been presented to the scientific community for independent verification. These are serious objections. The scientists profiled in this documentary would respond to them in various ways. Loeb would say that we have not been looking properly, that the scientific community's dismissiveness has prevented the kind of rigorous investigation that would settle the question. Nolan would point to his own analysis of anomalous materials and argue that the data speaks for itself, even if the sample's provenance is imperfect. Knuth would note that the Nimitz encounter was documented by multiple independent sensor systems: radar, infrared, visual observation, making mass hallucination or equipment failure an unlikely explanation. Vallee would suggest that the skeptics are asking the wrong questions, looking for physical spacecraft when the phenomenon may be something far stranger. The debate continues. It is not resolved. Perhaps it cannot be resolved with current evidence. But what the scientists in this documentary have done is ensure that the debate happens at all. They have lent their credibility, their expertise, and their careers to the proposition that these questions deserve serious investigation, even if they are wrong. That contribution has value. Why are we having this conversation in 2025 and not in 1975 or 1995? Several factors have converged to make this moment possible. First, the technology of observation has improved dramatically. The smartphones that billions of people carry can record video in high definition. Military sensor systems have become extraordinarily sophisticated. Space telescopes like JWST can analyze the atmospheres of planets orbiting distant stars. We are better equipped than ever before to gather and analyze data about anomalous phenomena. Second, the information environment has changed. The New York Times story in 2017 was pivotal. A mainstream respected newspaper treating the UFO phenomenon as worthy of serious investigation rather than tabloid fodder. Once that barrier was broken, other outlets followed. The stigma began to lift. Third, government transparency has increased, at least marginally. The Pentagon has acknowledged that unexplained aerial phenomena exist. Congress has held hearings. Official reports have been published. Whatever one thinks of their conclusions, the mere fact that these institutions are engaging with the subject is significant. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, the scientists themselves have stepped forward. For decades, researchers who studied UFOs did so quietly, afraid of professional consequences. Hynek reportedly advised young scientists to wait until they had tenure before expressing interest in the subject. Many simply stayed away entirely. But Loeb, Nolan, Seeger, Knuth, and Vallee have proven that it is possible to maintain scientific credibility while engaging with anomalous phenomena. They have published in peer-reviewed journals. They have founded research organizations. They have testified before Congress. They have shown that the stigma while still real, can be survived. This matters because science is, in many ways, a social enterprise. Scientists care about what other scientists think. If investigating UFOs is career suicide, few will do it, regardless of the evidence. But if respected figures demonstrate that investigation is possible, that one can study the phenomenon and still keep one's reputation, then others will follow. We may be at the beginning of that process now. But the history of science is also filled with moments when the mainstream consensus was wrong and the heretics were right. When the Earth was not flat. When the sun was not the center of the universe. When continents did move. When atoms could be split. We do not know which category these scientists will fall into. We do not know whether they will be remembered as pioneers or as cautionary tales. But we know this: they have looked at the evidence and they have not looked away. They have asked the questions. Now it is time for the rest of us to decide whether we have the courage to listen to the answers. And it may be watching us, even now, even here. When Galileo pointed his telescope at Jupiter and saw moons orbiting another world, some of his contemporaries refused to look through the instrument. They knew, they were certain, that such a sight was impossible. The heavens were perfect and unchanging. Earth was the center. Therefore, whatever Galileo claimed to see must be an illusion. When Darwin proposed that human beings had evolved from earlier primates, the reaction was often not scientific examination, but moral outrage. The idea was too disturbing, too threatening to established beliefs. Many preferred not to consider it at all. When Wegener proposed that continents drifted across the surface of the Earth, he was dismissed as a crackpot. The mechanism he proposed, forces within the Earth pushing the continents around, seemed absurd. It was not until decades after his death that plate tectonics was confirmed, and Wegener was vindicated. The pattern repeats throughout scientific history. Revolutionary ideas are resisted, not because the evidence is insufficient, but because the implications are too vast. Paradigm shifts happen not when evidence accumulates, but when resistance finally gives way. Are we in such a moment now? The scientists in this documentary think we might be. They have looked at data that others have ignored. They have asked questions that others have dismissed. They have risked their reputations on the proposition that something extraordinary is happening, something that mainstream science has refused to take seriously. They may be wrong. Time will tell. The evidence will accumulate or it will not. The truth, whatever it is, will eventually emerge. But they have done something that takes courage. They have looked at the unknown and refused to look away. They have said, loudly and publicly, that the question matters more than the stigma. That is how science advances, not through comfortable consensus, but through the willingness to ask uncomfortable questions. Avi Loeb, when asked why he persists despite the criticism, has said, "I would rather fail by daring than win by caution." Garry Nolan, when asked how he handles skepticism, has said that his skin turned into titanium. Kevin Knuth, when asked why scientists reject the UFO phenomenon, has attributed it to human arrogance. Jacques Vallee, after 6 decades of investigation, continues to write and theorize and challenge conventional thinking. Sarah Seeger, searching for biosignatures in distant atmospheres, has said the whole world is waking up. These are scientists who have chosen to ask the question that most of their colleagues avoid. Whatever the ultimate answer turns out to be, they have earned our attention and our respect. The universe is vast, it is ancient, it is strange beyond imagining, and somewhere out there, perhaps closer than we think, something may be waiting for us to open our eyes. The choice is ours. Will we look? Consider the scale of what we are discussing. Our Sun is one of roughly 200 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Most of those stars have planets. That means there are likely more planets in our galaxy alone than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth. And the Milky Way is one of at least 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. The numbers are incomprehensible. They exceed human intuition. When we try to imagine such vastness, our minds simply give up, and yet we are asked to believe that in all that vastness, across all those trillions of worlds, over all those billions of years, consciousness arose exactly once, that intelligence emerged on exactly one planet, that we, human beings on a small rocky world orbiting an ordinary star in an unremarkable corner of an average galaxy, are alone. The scientists in this documentary find that belief harder to accept than the alternative. We know a quarter of all the stars in the galaxy have planets in the habitable zone of their host star, Sarah Seeger has said. So to me, it is not impossible that there may be life elsewhere. The chance for life elsewhere seems inevitable based on sheer probability, she has added. Inevitable based on sheer probability. That is not wishful thinking. That is mathematics. The question is not whether life exists elsewhere in the universe. The question is whether we have already encountered it and whether we have the wisdom and the courage to recognize what we might be seeing. 5 scientists have looked at the evidence and concluded that the answer might be yes. They might be wrong. Science will tell us eventually, but they have asked the question. And perhaps that is the beginning of everything. The stars are still there, of course. They were there before humanity existed. They will be there long after we are gone. They do not care about our questions, our debates, our fears, or our hopes. But we are here now. We are asking the questions. And for the first time in human history, we have the tools to begin finding answers. 5 scientists have shown us what it looks like when credentialed, respected, accomplished researchers take the possibility of extraterrestrial contact seriously. They have shown us that it is possible to investigate the unknown without abandoning scientific rigor. They have shown us that asking forbidden questions does not have to end a career. Most importantly, they have shown us that the universe might be far stranger and far more crowded than we ever imagined. Whether their conclusions prove correct, whether Oumuamua was a light sail or a hydrogen iceberg, whether the Tic Tac was alien technology or a sensor artifact, whether non-human intelligence walks among us, or the whole thing is an elaborate misunderstanding, the questions they have raised will not go away. We will keep looking. We will keep asking. We will keep building better telescopes and more sensitive instruments. We will keep pushing into the unknown. That is what humans do. That is what science is for. And somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between the stars, something may be waiting for us to finally understand. Look up. The answer might be closer than you think.